sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
Welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In.
And now, on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 96 of Average Joe's Drive-In. I'm your host, DJ Washburn. With me this week, all the way from sunny California, back again is Mr. Jamie Gagnon. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well. Little too much sun for my liking.
Yeah, it's pouring rain right here in like 40 today, 40 degrees, and it's been a weird fall here in Maine. You haven't missed anything.
Well, people up north, my family in the top part of Maine, they've been getting a lot of snow.
Yeah, we've had like 6, 7 snowstorms already, and most of the snow down here is gone though because we've had a lot of rain too on top of it. It's been a very strange fall, so I don't know.
Yeah, it was kind of like that the last time I was on the episode, the show, when we went to your actual house in March.
Yeah.
Or April.
Yeah, it's been a while. I was just thinking of that the other day. I was looking back and I was like, man, I don't think I've had Jamie on now for probably 7 or 8 months. So It's definitely a good time. I've been anxious to have you back on and hear about what you have been up to since the last time we talked. I know you were busy and had a lot of stuff going on that you couldn't talk about at that time on the show, and so I'll be curious to hear what you can talk about this time.
Well, it's funny. A lot of the stuff I couldn't talk about earlier didn't happen. I was potentially going to work on, because I went home to see my family when I came to visit you last time, and then I had all these shows lined up for day playing gigs. I was potentially going to do some days on the Big Little Lies and a couple other things. That never happened. I did eventually start on Kidding, that Jim Carrey show, and then I eventually staffed on it before the show got done. And that was a cool experience. My first time on a Sony lot. That was that was surreal in a way to see like Jim Carrey walk around on stage.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now the Sony lot's one of those, it's one of the legendary places in Hollywood. So there's so much history there. That's going to be very cool to be able to just even be on the lot, let alone, get to experience a brilliant mind like Jim Carrey firsthand.
Yeah, it's funny to the lot. The fact that the lot is Columbia, the old Columbia lot. So it had like the intros with the Columbia lady. I don't know what her name is, with the torch.
Yeah.
Well, they had like a timeline, a visual timeline on one of the big buildings, and you could see like the years, the different Columbia logos. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that history part of film and television and all that stuff. It goes back now. You're talking 100 years. So it's really interesting to see where it started and to now where it's gone to, and in the subtle changes that have happened. A lot of them are very similar to what they've always been, but they have made those subtle changes, and some of them have made huge changes in the logos. So it's like, I always look at MGM, for as long as I can remember, it's just been the lion, So
they still use it. I just watched Creed 2, and they have like the old film version of the lion still. It's funny they kept it, and they start with the eye and they zoom out, and then he does his roar. It's just really weird because it looks so, you can see the artifacts, the pixelation from a bygone era. You see the logo, it's still the same. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's that nostalgic feel though every time it pops on. I watched a movie the other day called The Domestics that I have been waiting to see for quite a while, and I believe it was the first new picture released by the resurrected Orion Pictures. So I don't know if you're the same way as I am, but I grew up with Orion Pictures. That was like, that was a staple. There was like a certain level of expectation I had when that logo popped up. So it was really cool after, it's gotta be at least 15 years or more, maybe 20 years since Orion's even been around. So to see that pop back up again now was pretty awesome. It gave me the warm fuzzies, seeing that. I was like, oh yeah. So.
Well, it's funny you say that. I hadn't heard about it, and then I saw the trailer for their new film, Anna and the Apocalypse. It's like a Christmas musical.
Which I cannot wait to see. I'm hoping that gets a release around here, which I doubt it will because it's Maine, but I'm hoping maybe it gets at least VOD or something, Oh,
I'm sure it will. It's one of those films that could end up like the, oh my God, what's the name of that theater?
Railroad Square?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get a lot of that stuff. I love that theater. I miss them.
I may have to try to talk my good friend Dan Fleming into maybe doing a road trip down there to see that sometime in the next few weeks if it happens to play there, because that's what it looks like. It would be a fun theater experience.
Oh, for sure.
So.
Yeah, every time I see Orion, though, I think of Robocop.
That's pretty much the first thing I think of every time, too, man. I think of Robocop. I see the logo and I immediately hear the music, for the Robocop. But there were so many pictures. Like I couldn't name them off the top of my head now, but I think the last thing I see with an Orion logo on it was it was a Stephen King adaptation that George Romero did. Wow, I am totally having a brain cramp. The Dark Half. I believe that was Orion. I think that was one of the last times one of the last movies they did, because I know they were having a lot of financial problems when that came out, and that was part of the reason that film was kind of so discombobulated because they were running out of funding and they had to rush to finish it and all that. And I think that might have been one of the last films they did. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. So, I mean, you're talking a long time. That was 20 years ago, easy. So.
Yeah. Man, it's funny the way that things shift around, being out here, seeing, hearing. It's funny because out here there are a lot of people who, it's kind of a nice, pleasant surprise. You'll walk by somebody and like they're talking about film. Like everybody out here is about film. It's really cool. But a lot of things on people's minds is like this whole, Disney taking over Fox, and yes, the Fox lot's going to retain with the new Fox company, and they're leasing it out to Disney for 7 years. But what happens after that? Is it going to be an open market? Because I work in the Fox lot, I'm worried about like job security. These people are going to lose their jobs. They're going to shut it down. What's going to happen? Yeah.
I mean, that's a completely different perspective from what I'm seeing. I really haven't paid much attention to it other than, well, Disney acquired Fox, so that means we're going to get all the Marvel stuff is going to be able to become one universe now. And that's been my thoughts on stuff. I don't think so much of the aspects of the impact it's going to have on the people working for Fox, like you and other people.
Yeah. And that's the first thing I thought of. I was so angry when I actually went through. And I was angry. For a second, I was angry, like, oh man, why are these people so excited about this? Like, it's mostly bad news. And I'm hoping that it's not going to be as bad as it initially seemed. And yeah, it was weird to have that perspective, because if it was me even a year before that, I'd be like, sweet, Wolverine and Captain America could be in a movie together.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, So.
Right. And I get that. I totally get that. And I'm hopeful now that, Disney can steer the ship to a little more of a consistent direction. But we'll see.
Yeah. Something else, I haven't talked to you for a little while, man. How did you make it through the whole thing with all the fires and stuff out there? That was some crazy stuff going on out there.
Yeah, where I live, it's mostly rural area. It's not really. I live like 4 or 5 miles from many mountains in Burbank and stuff. So sometimes I would see some fires. Not this time. It's mostly Malibu that got hit, and then of course Northern California, like Sacramento area.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't sure, but I just know that was some awful, crazy stuff going on out there. So
it's terrible. Yeah. That's why I said I'd love to have rain. I'd love to have more rain. But no, I did. There was a small fire near us during that time when it first kind of blew up. And, the most that affects us is air quality for a while, and then the soot from the fire settles onto like our balcony and our cars and stuff. So it gets pretty dirty.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, it's going to be kind of, fires of that scale is going to be almost like like a volcano erupting as far as like the soot and ash because of the volume of things that are burning, know.
But, so it did rain recently though. We got like an inch and a half in like 18 hours or so. It happens a lot. It drops. Like it's weird. It's not like Maine where if it's going to rain here, it rains hard and fast and everything gets flooded for a bit and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Which is nice because it was nice to have rain. It finally put out all the fires up north anyway. Yeah. And, usually the past 3 years, this is the third winter I've been here and so far the rain's been pretty consistent. Before I moved out here, I guess there was like a good drought for 15 years or so. And I'm all for the rain. Like, more, bring it on. Like, we have some more coming up in a couple of days. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good thing. Definitely a good thing. I mean, water is the source of life, man. So you gotta have it, and it's definitely, hopefully, will kind of calm things down out there a little bit if you get some on a little more of a regular basis.
Yeah. I just realized I steered the thing towards the weather. That's not good.
Oh, well, whatever. It's fine. It's definitely it's a topic, something like I said, I haven't talked to you for a little while. So not only since the last time I've had you on, I've only talked to you a few times since then because life is busy and it's hard to keep up with everybody. So I just, it's a good topic of conversation. This show is what it is. We'll talk about whatever. If we want to talk about, a plague of locusts, that would be fine too, whatever. Though that really wouldn't be weather. That would be nature, but.
That'd be a biblical thing, a whole new, topic there.
Yeah, that's a whole different subject, but, yeah, so what's new with you as far as the industry side of things go?
So since we talked last, like I said, I was on kidding for a while. I got staffed, left that show early in mid-July, went to my primary show, 911. I've been on that since like July 16th. We just went on a hiatus a week and a half ago though. So we're off for like 6 weeks for the holiday. Yeah. Which is a long time. So I've been day playing here and there. Worked a couple days on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. That was mostly the kidding crew I worked with in the summer. I had a day on a show called Black Monday starring Don Cheadle. Next week I think I'm doing a day on Lethal Weapon.
Oh, cool.
So I'm just trying to keep busy. I've saved enough money where I can, I have some saved, I'm not touching it all. And then I have some I'm just trying to use to float bills. I'm actually in a pretty good spot considering I don't have to work for so long, but I am going to work as much as possible. It's just kind of the gig out here.
Yeah. So it's kind of, it sounds to me like it's kind of a feast or famine deal. You're either right out straight or doing nothing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And right now it's good to get day playing gigs because everything's still playing. Everything's still working until the Christmas break. And
yeah, because like I think you were saying last year, they pretty much everything kind of really shuts right down for almost a month, doesn't it? Really, and out there.
For the holidays?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like now it's good, but then soon in mid-December it'll be pretty quiet. So I'll work as much as I can now. I'll start back up in January for 911. I'm using a lot of this time to write though, which is nice because I was working, anywhere from 65 to 90 hours a week with 911. So it's good to have some time off.
So how is I'm assuming when you're talking about writing, you're talking about your book that you've been working on, or are you writing other stuff, screenplays? What have you been up to as far as that stuff goes?
Well, it's funny you should mention it. When I started kidding, I was hoping to be done my second draft of my book. But I just finished my first draft. I put it away for a month or so, did the second draft somehow during work. And I really want to start the third draft, but instead of going back into it and giving it some time to breathe, I've decided to go on an old script I've been tinkering with for a while. Feature length, sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, coming of age story is the best way I could describe it.
Oh, that sounds cool. That sounds right up my alley. So
Right.
Anything sci-fi is usually right up my alley. So that's
Exactly.
very cool. So something you've been working on for quite a while that you just kind of put away and haven't messed around with for a bit.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that I had like this brilliant idea, or just like brilliant burst of creative energy, and I came up with this cool idea, and I tinkered with it. Then didn't know what to do with it. Put it aside. It kind of went away for too long. And then I kept coming in my mind like, oh, man, I missed this idea. Like, look at that. And then I would think of some more pieces to it, kind of putting the puzzle together. And then this time I just sat down and started outlining. And it's weird with me. I have to do it really slowly. Like once I start, okay, I confirm this is my next project. I kind of just start outlining and just putting some cards up. You know, as they say you should, but it's hard for me to do sometimes. I've gotten better at it, but I just throw cards up. Like I want to see this scene, maybe around here after the midpoint, and then it starts falling into place. And then as I'm doing that and letting it seep into my subconscious, I'm also working out the characters. So when I come back to the outline, like, oh, that she wouldn't do this. This character wouldn't do this because she's, you know, blah, 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 whatever. And so it really helps shape the story in a more, realistic way.
Yeah. I just, like, I outlined something for a screenplay just recently because I actually went back kind of like you, not so much on a feature length, but I had some short screenplays that I wrote like years ago. And, I always liked the ideas, but at the time I hadn't been writing much and, you know, they weren't polished at all. They were basically first drafts and I never really did anything else with them. So recently, you know, like over the last couple months, cause I've been kind of on a creative writing hiatus as far as I've been doing some short stories here and there, but the passion just hasn't been there to write lately and I haven't had the idea flow hasn't been there. And instead of, you know, I tried to force myself to work through it and it wasn't going so well and I was just getting frustrated. And so I've kind of just stepped back the last few months and haven't really been working on a whole lot. You know, there's been a few little things here and there I've kind of messed with. But during that time, I have gone back and kind of reworked some of those short screenplays. And I even got as far as like storyboarding some stuff out and, you know, just getting to that point with it. And it's interesting to go back and look at stuff like that, especially when you haven't looked at it for a while and going, boy, that doesn't work. This works. You know, it's amazing, which is something I've learned from my fiction writing is, you know, before, as soon as I was done, I would go back immediately and start writing again and doing edits. And I missed so much because I didn't give it time to breathe.
Yeah.
So it's very important, you know, now I generally, like a short story, I usually give at least a month after I finish it, unless it's something I really need a quick turnaround on for a submission for something. But I generally let it sit for at least a month before I even look at it again. You know, with a novel, I generally let a novel sit for anywhere between like 2, 3, 4 months because I want to look at it with a fresh perspective. And I found it's really helped me tighten my stories up.
Yeah. And what you do is exactly the way to do it. Like there are several things you touched upon that are perfect for writing. I mean, like to uncork that dam, the best way you can do that is to work on something completely different, take your mind off of it, and leave it, let it breathe as long as you can. Because I noticed that with my second draft of my book, I had a friend read it, and I think I had like 3 or 4 chapters in when I sent her the draft, so it wasn't officially like a second draft yet.
Yeah.
So she was reading it, you know, and the book is not. I told her because she had messaged me, hey, you want to like swap scripts and take notes? Like we used to be in a screenwriting group together, and we do that, but our thing got disbanded because we lost a location over a year ago. So it was like hey, let's do this again. It's been a while, and then I was like, well, I'm not working on a script. I'm working on a book. And it's a hefty read, so I don't want you to feel like you're obligated to read it all in a certain time frame. But she did, and luckily she liked it and she, read through it pretty quickly. But when she gave me her notes, I had finished my second draft officially, and a lot of the stuff, the broad strokes she had mentioned were already addressed by this draft, thankfully.
Right.
So there are some more things I based on her notes I can cut out, but I haven't read her actual detailed notes yet because I'm waiting till I'm ready to rewrite so I don't get muddied with something else I'm working on. It's hard enough now not to think about that book and to rewrite it.
Well, I mean, that's, for those who don't know, who maybe haven't listened to some of Jamie's past episodes, why don't you give them like a quick rundown of what the book is about?
Yeah, sure. The book is a very straightforward autobiographical story of when I was 18, I was diagnosed with leukemia, and it started as just the story of that episode, but quickly evolved into this kind of this like proclamation of my rejuvenation of life, like to appreciate things more, to go for my goals, to strive for things I could never thought possible before, and how it kind of took me a long time to get to that point, and the trials and tribulations between this like 12-year gap after treatment to when the book ends, when I actually come out here to LA. Like that's my goal of the second half of the book, was to make it like, here's what I did, here's what you can do. Don't waste all the time like I did. Just go do something you want to do and get out there. And so yeah, it's about that. It's about the medical side of things, but it's a very straightforward, somehow easier to write than I ever thought possible.
Sometimes it's very cathartic to get that stuff out because it's in your head and you just need to. I think it's almost not that you're letting go of it, but you are. You've got it somewhere so you can kind of put it aside and maybe not have it in your head so much, if that makes any sense,
Sure. But I think and I know what you're saying, like people have to like process things in certain ways. The weird thing is I didn't have like this underlying, like this nagging issue with the story. I just kind of forgot about it. And so I had to actually research my whole life and like research my past, because I had forgotten so many of the details, and I wish I had like made a journal. Like everybody who's listening should make a journal of their life. You never know when you're gonna need it. I'm serious. Like it's such a helpful thing to have. So I had to research my life, talk to old nurses, talk to my family members, go through my old notes, whatever I had, and just parse out the stuff that was pertinent to the story. And it was a weird journey, but it all started because I talked to a friend about it, like in more detail than I'd ever had touched upon in years. And I was like, I should write this down for posterity's sake. And, sure enough, that's what became the book. So it was great to write because I was able to kind of relive those emotional waves and really appreciate where I had been again. Because I was in a funk when I started writing it. And by the time I got finished, I was out here, but.
Well, I'm sure it gave you a very fresh perspective on how far you had come since all of that had happened, and where you were and where you are now, and the steps it took to get there, the trials and tribulations. I know I'm really looking forward to reading it when it's all done.
Yeah. No, I'm glad about that because it's a lot of people have said that, and I put so many chapters out as a first draft of my blog, and I stopped at 100, and it sounds like a lot. It sounds stupid, but it's going to change so much. It's already changed a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I kind of wanted to do that as well as an education in how things evolve as a writing project would, reshape itself as it goes through revisions. So I kept it up there for now. Eventually, when the book's out, I'll put the last, 25 chapters of the first draft out. It's like 170,000 words.
Oh, wow. That's a big book.
Yeah, I cut like 2,000 off last draft. I mostly just fixed things and merged things that were needed to, and it's going to be an interesting rewrite again when I'm actually cutting a lot more, so I know what to cut.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll notice you'll find yourself repeating stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't really need to reiterate this again. I've already mentioned it 4 times already. So I feel like maybe I'm beating somebody over the head with a club here to drive a point across. Sometimes you need to do that in subtle ways, but, it gets to the point where you notice, I mean, you do that. I think that's any writer's, crux right there anyway, is that you have a tendency, at least I know I do, maybe not everybody's the same way, but I have a tendency, especially earlier on in a book when I'm kind of feeling out my character still a little bit, because, especially in fiction, your characters are evolving over the course of a book. And a lot of times you start out with a mindset of having a character be one way. And then as the book progresses along, a lot of times, and it's weird to say, but they take on their own personality, so things shift gears a little bit. So you go back and you look and you're like, wow, that really, even what I was beating them over the head with at the beginning isn't even relevant to that character now. So I need to adjust this a little bit or, change it. It's not such a key focal point now where I can trim some of that out,
Yeah. And I hear you completely. And the character of myself changes a lot in this story. And there are a lot of points where it's just repeating the same stuff. Like, here's my process through this moment in my life, but it repeats itself. Like there was a couple things that I talked about my first film projects, and she's like, yeah, it was cool at first, but then you talked about 2 more projects, and you could have easily cut those out, and because it got boring, I was skimming through it. I'm like, well, that's good to know. This is why I have people read it ahead of time. So it's
beta readers, test readers, whatever you want to call them, are so important. I'm lucky now that, through the 5-6 years that I have been putting out material, that I have a pretty solid group of 3 or 4 people I can trust. You always have people like, oh, I want to read it, I want to be a beta reader, and you send them it, and then they either they never actually read it and get back to you, or they're just like, yeah, I liked it, or I didn't like it. I'm like, I need actual feedback on what you did or did not like. I've got to the point now where I have these 4 or 5 really key people that I know if I send them something, they're gonna read it, and they're also gonna tell me what they do and don't like about it. On my book, when I finished my book Normal, one of the things that everybody said to me was, I really, really like the book, but that ending just didn't feel quite right to me. Like it was missing something. And so, and all my beta readers told me this, basically the same thing. They pointed out a few other things, but that was the big thing. They were like, that made the book, it was good, but it wasn't, great. So I went back and, I had kind of intended to make the ending a little ambiguous. I didn't really want it to be right in your face and, I wanted to kind of be like one of those what the fuck moment type things. And it didn't quite come across that way. So seeing that, I was like, okay. And it just happened that the first idea that popped into my head was something I had kind of thought of before but dismissed. So I banged out the chapter actually fairly quick, which usually does not happen with me. And, I banged it out pretty quick anyway, and I, went through and did a quick edit on it, and I sent it out a week later to everybody, and everybody was like, holy shit, that elevated that book to a different level for me. It packed so much punch, and it just was creepy, and it was how that book should have ended. And I was like, awesome. But if it hadn't have been for their feedback, I would have gone, it would have just ended the way it did. And while I think it would have still been a decent book, I don't think it would have been as good as it turned out,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's crucial to have readers like that. And I had never had to experience this kind of thing. I'd have people read my screenplays, and when I was in Maine, there weren't enough people there were a lot of people who gave me great feedback in terms of prose or grammatical issues. And I'm fairly competent in grammar. It's just a matter of I needed the feedback of how's the story flow, like how does this make sense? And so out here I have had a lot more people who are well versed in the screenplay format and have given me some amazing feedback.
Well, you're surrounded. I mean, that's what you're surrounded by out there. So, right. I mean, that definitely is key because I know I have a few people that I, have worked with or am working with or whatever that will send me stuff, and it's nice to be able to at least understand enough about it to say, well, this is all good, but this section right here really kills the whole friggin' tempo of your screenplay, or, this right here, maybe you want to try moving that to a different section or taking it out or add this and this, and maybe just even a couple lines of dialogue here would change the whole flow and, whatever. But a lot of people, especially I'm not, that versed in screenplays, but I have at least a basic understanding of setups and how they work. And, so it's interesting to hear you say that too, because like with mine, there's only a handful of people I know that I can send stuff to that will give me the type of feedback I need for a screenplay, because it's not a book. It's screenplays in fiction or nonfiction writing, whatever, are two very different things.
Oh yeah.
It's a completely different animal. Some people, that's why, some authors are amazing authors, but they're terrible at writing screenplays, or vice versa,
Yeah, it's true.
There's an art form to both. Some people are just good at both, but it's interesting to read them. And now that I've read a few and both, it's kind of interesting to see the similarities and the differences between the two.
Somebody who can do both really well is Gillian Flynn, like the writer of Gone Girl. She co-wrote Widows. Have you seen that yet?
I have not.
Holy shit. That movie is amazing. Co-written with Steve McQueen, the director, who's done
didn't that just come out recently?
Yeah, it came out about like a month and a half ago, maybe tops, and it never got the success it probably deserved. It kind of went in and out of theaters pretty quickly. If you would have it, it might be like maybe the cheap seats Bangor. You'd have to look up, but I don't know. It definitely didn't get the credit that was due, because it was a brilliant movie.
Because I just recently, like within the last maybe week or two, heard about it. I haven't heard that much about it, but I've heard that title mentioned, and so I have a clue what it was about. I'll keep my eye open for it. If nothing else, I'll get it at Redbox or on demand or something and check it out.
Yeah, sure. I think it should be out probably by December or January, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a pretty quick turnaround these days with stuff from like the theater to like rental or on demand. I mean, compared to when I was a kid, I remember, and I'm sure the same with you, is I remember a movie coming out and it would be like a year before we would get it on, video to check out. So now it's like, I just see like Halloween comes out on video in like 2 weeks. I'm like, I just saw that in the theater like a month and a half ago. So,
right. Yeah, I think for me, it was like the average when I would remember when it was like 6 months. Yeah. Unless it was holiday movies, and that was about a year, because it was always like trying to capitalize on Christmas.
Yeah. But it's
Widow's February 2019.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, that's one I'll have to kind of keep on my radar. I've been trying to find some newer stuff to watch, because I feel like we're in a weird lull right now of a lot of the blockbustery type stuff that's coming out is stuff I've already seen, which is fine because I want to watch it again, but I'm also in that mood right now for some new stuff that I haven't seen. The Domestics was something that I was dying to see. I was like, that looks right up my alley, post-apocalypse. It's an Orion picture. So I rented it last week and I quite enjoyed it. You'll hear my review about that on what would be now last week's episode of the podcast. So if you haven't listened to that review cast, episode number 95, make sure you go back and check it out and you can hear my thoughts on it. So I'm not going to spoil it now, I guess. You'll have to go back It gives me an excuse to make you go listen to that episode if you haven't yet.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what I've seen recently that would be of note.
Black Klansman, I'm super excited to check out. I've got to see that one. That looked really good.
Yeah, I missed that one. I've recently watched. I mean, I got this new. So it's like Movie Pass, but only for AMC, called A-List.
Yeah.
And it is a hell of a deal. I don't really care for AMC that much, but man, 3 movies a week, it's IMAX, Dolby, whatever, and for $20 a month. So you watch 12 movies a month, and it's ridiculous.
Wow, that's a hell of a deal. See, and that's like 2 movies if you go to the theater on a regular basis. So yeah.
But I saw Mid-90s was one of the ones I'd seen. That was really good. Jonah Hill, a 90s skate movie. He wrote and directed it. He didn't star in it. Surprisingly good. It's shot in this weird video 4:3 format, and it's well done. Coming of age story surrounded by the skating world in the 90s, skateboarding. It's pretty fun.
I remember hearing something about that a while ago, but I haven't heard anything about it since. So that's kind of interesting. I haven't, I'm trying to think, man. I went through October, as most anybody who listens to the show knows. I go absolutely bonkers with horror movies in October. I watch horror all year round, but October is it's like my Christmas, man. I just go absolutely, I watched 51 movies in October this year, all horror. And this year, I mean, that was easily by far the most I've ever done in a year. But my goal this year was to watch mainly stuff I hadn't seen or had only seen once a long time ago.
Nice.
So it was really interesting this year to watch so many movies I hadn't seen before. And it really kind of lit a fire under my ass and got me really excited about, just checking out new stuff again, because I don't know about you, but I go through lulls where I just want my comfort food. I want the stuff that I've seen and I'm familiar with and just I know is good, especially when you go on a run of really bad movies that you don't like type deal. But this year there was a lot of stuff, dude, that was classics that there was no reason I shouldn't have seen them, but I hadn't type thing, like The Exorcist. Never.
Oh, wow.
I had never seen The Exorcist. Out of all horror movies, one of the, probably most notorious horror movies around. Never saw it, never had any desire to see it, just one of those movies. And I finally said this year, I'm going to sit down and watch this. And while I didn't find the movie remotely scary, I thought it was a very well done movie. The acting was awesome, the score was great, the film, the videography was beautiful. Just a great movie, and I could see why people like that movie so much and why it gets all the accolades that it does. So stuff like that, it was a really interesting year, but the only problem was this year, I don't normally map out what I'm going to watch ahead of time because I'm too ADD and I, spur of the moment want to watch something and I just do it. I did stick to my list pretty good though. But there was a lot of stuff that I had on my list that I hadn't seen that I still haven't got to yet. So I've kind of taken a little bit of a break the last month and a half, the last month or so, and haven't watched a ton of horror. But I'm kind of ready to start throwing some on again. I didn't watch Hereditary. Been waiting to see.
Oh, wow.
Mandy.
That's good.
I've been dying to see Mandy. Which I could have watched, I just didn't get to it. So those two are definitely on my list of stuff to watch. I have the 4K, restored version from Diabolic DVD coming of, Lucio Fulci's Zombie, which is one of my favorite Italian films ever. So I'm picking that up this week. I can't wait to watch that on the home theater. I'm excited. So
nice. I don't know if you've seen this one yet. It's a horror movie. It's set Christmas time. It's called Better Watch Out. Did you ever hear that?
My buddy Eugene from the Movie Freaks podcast was just talking about that. So no, I haven't seen it yet. I've heard about it, but it's definitely one I got to check out.
It was well made. It's really weird. It was like I was kind of angry at the same time because it's so well lit that it wasn't lit like a horror movie like Krampus or something where
yeah.
You know, it's like there's actual shadows, like you're playing with their expectations, and it was so well lit, it was almost annoying. And then one of the kid actors was grading, but he was supposed to be, and he was so fun to watch. It was like one of those like characters you love to hate.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, it was a fun time.
There was have you seen the Nicolas Cage Selma Blair movie Mom and Dad yet?
Not yet.
There's a couple of characters in that. Kid characters in that movie that are exactly how you're describing. That is such a that's like good Rage Cage. You know, you get the bad Rage Cage and the good Rage Cage.
Right.
That is good Rage Cage. It's such a weird, bonkers, over the top movie. It's like a weird cross between a early 80s Italian flick and like a late 70s exploitation film. It's really weird. But it's fun. If you like those types of movies, you would probably dig it. If you like really straight ahead, not, you know, kind of linear storylines, nah, probably not. But it's like one really long, it doesn't even really, you know, like a lot of Italian films, they're just all over the place. It's almost like one act of a film, all just thrown into one, if that makes sense. And that's kind of how this felt. It didn't feel like there was a beginning, middle, and end, but it almost doesn't feel like it type deal. It's kind of a weird deal, but it's really short to the point, and it's messed up and awesome and a lot of fun. So that might be one to check out if you get a chance.
Yeah, my roommate has it. He brought a lot of his DVDs over. He actually just moved from Maine a couple weeks ago. I've been trying to get him out here since I've been out here 2 years ago, and he finally made a trip. And I'm glad he's here because I got him a handful of days in 911 before we went on hiatus, and he's been working as like a background performer at a couple shows, and he's started doing lift like I did, and it'll be fun.
Oh, sweet! It'd be kind of cool to have a familiar face around as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's the fifth person I know here from Maine that's moved out. 4 of which moved out after I did. It's funny because they say. I don't know. Some people have told me it's because I moved out, and like I just don't feel like as if that was a big deal, like I had to. And like, no, it was really crazy what you did. And like, in hindsight, I guess it was pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, you did just kind of be like, I'm going to do this, and and just went out there and chased a dream, man. I mean, it's one of those things. It's not everybody has the cojones to do that. It's one of those things. It's like anybody that's creative, so often the thing I hear is, well, I'm in a bad location, I can't, it was something that always come up with music for me. It was I live in Maine. It's hard to tour when you have a 5-hour drive to get anywhere to even start,
Sure.
So that was the thing that I think always was one of the things that kind of held me back as a musician, and I know it, and it's just, but, I like Maine. I don't know if I really want to move somewhere else to pursue a dream.
Sure.
You made that decision, which a lot of people don't. So I think the inspiration that you have given to other people by going out chasing your dreams and proving you can do it maybe made it a little less scary for them to at least give it a shot.
Well, I didn't come back with my tail between the legs yet, so that helped.
Yeah, you're going on you said 3 years now that you've been out there?
Well, it was the third winter. It was just over 2 years ago, beginning of November. Yeah. I came out here. But, I mean, and I'm not saying that everybody's dream's the same, but anybody can do what they think is impossible. You just gotta do it and plan it. And if you can't see yourself living the alternative and you're worried about it happening or not, well, it's only the propulsion of your own 2 feet, the locomotion of your feet. If you can't, I think it's feasible for anybody any goal you have in mind, you can easily achieve it. You just got to figure it out. That's the biggest thing about it to me.
Yeah. And I think realizing one of the things is I think you have to look at things in a realistic light as well. And by that I mean you have to look at it and going, okay, if I do this, there's probably going to be a lot of days where I'm going to be, I'm not going to have money and I may not have a meal that day or I may not do this, but is that worth it to me for the end game, the ultimate end game because if I don't go do this now and I keep waiting, I'm never going to do it. So I want to give this a fair shot so I can at least say at the very least, I tried. I made a go. It didn't work out, but at least I know I tried.
Yeah. And, I think even giving yourself an option of a way out is bad. I was like, there's no other option. There's nothing else I can do. I'm going to have to be out here. It helped that the industry I was going for is out here, and like you said, my April to June, 2 years in a row now, in 2017, 2018, fucking sucked. But you kind of live through it and you get some more work and you start digging yourself out of the hole. And this time I plan on my next April to June not to be so stressed out because I'm saving money now, putting some stuff away, paying bills down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm doing my thing slowly but surely.
And I'm sure it helps that you've gone through the trials and tribulations, so you kind of have a little bit of an idea maybe what to expect with slowdowns and when the busy times are, and things like that. So you're not just going in it maybe so blindly as far as what's going on.
Right. Yeah. So I think my friend Brandon, who, maybe I'll plug his podcast because he has a podcast.
Oh, cool.
called Nostalgia Be Damned. They look at rewatch movies from the 90s and early 2000s that they grew up loving and see if they hold up. It's really funny.
I know how that is. I watched a few of those during the Horathon this year that I saw many years ago, and I hadn't viewed since. They were like one-time viewings that I saw when they first came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and went back and rewatched some of them. Mm-hmm. Some of them were pretty bad, and some of them were a lot better than I remembered. I think some of that is due to my age and life experience and, the amount of films that I watch, because I watch an asinine amount of films. So,
right.
It's knowing what's good and what's bad. I think I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to films in general. I can usually find something good even in a bad movie,
Sure.
The cinematography was really good, the rest of the film was awful, or there was this one performance that was awesome, not so much everything else or whatever. But I very rarely ever just flat out loathe a movie where it's got to be pretty bad for me to just be like, no, that sucked, the whole thing was terrible. I watched Pumpkinhead 2 Bloody Wings this year, which is one I've known about for years. I adore the first Pumpkinhead movie. To me, I think that's Lance Henriksen's creme de la creme of performances. So I'm sure people will fight me on that one, but I think he's just so awesome as the distraught father and what he goes through in that film. The second one, the only thing it had going for it that was even remotely good was the creature effects. Everything else was absolutely awful. It was painful. It was painful. I had to force myself to sit through that. That doesn't happen very often.
No. It's funny. Yeah, I've never seen it. I've never seen the Pumpkinhead movies. I've wanted to.
Oh, the first one is phenomenal. It's Stan Winston directed it. It's also Stan Winston's Creature Shop. So, it looks awesome effects wise, but it's a really good movie. I mean, don't go in expecting Othello or, friggin' The Godfather. It's a B movie, but it's, like I said, I think Lance Henriksen's performance in that is one of those unheralded type things that he doesn't get enough credit for. That's not, I think outside of maybe genre fans, most people don't even know about that movie. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't go in expecting much more than a cheesy 80s horror, which I would love to see. So I'm excited. I'll have to check it out. At least the first one.
Oh yeah, the first one. I know they've made like 4 or 5 since then, and
wow, really?
After the second one, I think I'm good. I'll just stick with my love of the first one and continue to enjoy that. So,
right. I rewatched the Puppet Master saga. I'd say at this point.
I just got a bunch of those. I've only seen a few of them, and I don't even know which ones I've seen. If that tells you anything.
They're so cheesy, though.
I just got them this past summer. Somebody actually gave me the first, I think, 8, because there's, like 50 of them. So, and I haven't.
A box set?
No, it was 2 separate discs. It was like 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8.
Yeah.
On a disc. It's just somebody happened to have them and they gave them to me because they don't like horror. So, and they acquired them. So I need to sit down at some point. That's one of those things, like, I bought the Blu-ray box set of the original Planet of the Apes.
Nice.
That is that's going to be, I've been kind of saving that for this winter because I really watch more movies in the wintertime than I do, the rest of the year because it's Maine and we have 5 months of doom and gloom and that's the perfect time to watch movies. So I've been kind of holding off on those because there's a few of them I haven't seen and the ones I have seen, it's been a long time. So I'm interested to see the restored Blu-ray versions of those on the home theater, on the big screen. And I got my projector downstairs and my theater room set up now. So I'm pretty excited to watch those on that. But I'm interested to go back because I love those movies as a kid. So I'm kind of curious, on the subject of rewatching stuff. I'm really curious to see how those hold up.
They're cheesy as hell, man, but they're really fun. The first 5 are some of my favorite films, and then 6 and 7 are kind of, it's when they started losing. First 5 were produced by Paramount Pictures, and then the rest of them were all like direct to video, like small budget. So you can definitely tell the quality drop. But the newest one just came out this year, I think, with Thomas Lennon and
the Littlest Reich, wasn't it?
Yeah. The writer was the guy who did Bonesaw Tomahawk, and he loved the series, and he made a new one. It's like awesome. Yeah,
I love Bone Tomahawk. He did Cell Block 99, Brawl in Cell Block 99 too.
I didn't see that.
Well, or was it, at least it was produced by Dallas Seeger, I think's the guy's name. That's the production guy behind Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 99, which is a Vince Vaughn prison movie type thing, I guess. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it's bonkers and super violent, so nice. I need to check it out at some point. He's also one of the guys behind the Resurrection of Fangoria.
No shit.
Yep.
Nice. Glad to hear that.
So I'm curious to check that out, but I've heard it's definitely what you want out of a Puppet Master movie. Cheesy and super bloody and gory and just crazy and it's got some things and stuff in it I heard that are pretty disturbing, so that sounds about right.
Yeah.
From what I remember,
So I wasn't going to talk about this because it's such in its infancy stage, but Brandon and I, one of the reasons why he came out here is so we can write movies together and hopefully sell them. And we're working on this like horror thriller, and because we both never really had a good handle on how to write a proper horror, because we're aficionados as well, so we don't want to make something that's half-assed.
Right.
We want to really stand out in that genre. So we've been working on this idea that I'm really excited about. I'm outlining it at the same time as I'm doing this other script, and it could be too much, but the fact that we're working on it together helps a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
But oh my God, I can't wait to bring this one out into the wild and start telling people about it. Like, I'll have to come back on the show and tell you about this one.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always excited to. I was saying I outlined a new script.
Yeah.
It's a holiday themed horror deal, and kind of like an anthology, but not really an anthology. It's all based around a central theme that kind of all ties in together, but it takes place in 4 or 5 separate parts. So it's one of those things, like if I ever actually write it, who knows? I've debated whether of writing it as a screenplay or a book. Or maybe both, we'll see, but it's supposed to be campy and cheesy and just, along the lines of like the horror movie Jack Frost.
Yeah.
Something just fun and stupid, and that's what it's supposed to be. But I want to write it in kind of a serious way, so maybe it kind of, I don't know, we'll see. But it's always fun to get excited about those types of projects when you get the vision and it pops in your head and you kind of know where you want to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm really excited to see, because we've worked so well together in the past, and that's another reason I was trying to get him out here so many years, was because I had high hopes. If I can make it out here, Jesus, he could easily make it out here. So that's the plan. This script will be, if not our first thing we do, it'll be the second. We really want to work with Blumhouse Productions.
Yeah, there's a few. A24 would be a cool one to work with. There's some really cool, like, genre companies right now that are really making some very cool genre picks, whether it's horror or sci-fi or horror sci-fi or, those types of, almost like, to me, it's kind of like the second coming of like the Orion Pictures and some of those companies that I grew up loving that aren't really around anymore, that were kind of like those mid-tier producers that produce awesome stuff, that mid-budget stuff. And I don't know, because I'm not out there, but it seems to me like there's not a lot of those mid-tier places left in Hollywood.
Not at all. I mean, even like Blumhouse, they make it for super cheap. They're really micro budgets, and they make so much money.
Oh yeah, and they make some. That's one of those companies that, when I see their name attached, I know if they're putting it out, it's probably at least a competently made film, if nothing else, So they were like one of those companies, man, because I'm me and I resist the newfangled trend thing. And, I didn't watch a lot of their stuff originally, and then I've kind of started picking up a few of their things and checking it out, and it's like, so far, pretty much 90% of what I've seen by them, I've been pretty impressed.
Good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the stuff they do as well. And I know that you have to have it has to be like your second feature at least before they work with you, because you have to prove yourself, which is a great challenge for me. It's like, all right, let's do it. Here's the first movie. I'm ready for this to be the second one, if that's the case. Yeah. Because this is like totally up their alley.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it's so you've got all that stuff going on. So, like what is, so, and I know you've been working on a lot of TV shows. You've got a regular gig with the 911 thing, which that show seems to be doing very well, very popular. Mm-hmm. I always see trailers for it and, different stuff. And, so, and I know, is it I guess, does it make it easier now that you have, I want to say, insider information or, on how things work? Do you feel that's like maybe makes it a little easier, more digestible for you to proceed with what your ultimate end game is here with, writing stuff and getting films out and I mean, are you interested in just the writing part of it too? Or I don't know if I really ever talked to you about whether or not, do you want to direct eventually, or is it,
Well, the stuff I write, I have, every time I think of a script I want to write, I always assume that I'm gonna, I always assume that I'm gonna direct it, but a lot of them end up happening where it's like, oh no, I could easily sell this one and just leave it be. Yeah. And because there's some I really want to see through a certain way, and then others I could just sell, which again, either way, it would be a great problem to have.
Absolutely. See,
so I do want to direct some of them.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I have no desire to direct at all. So, I mean, I guess I would if that was the only means to me getting stuff made, but it's not something not something I want to do. I enjoy acting. I enjoy writing. I don't really want to deal with that part of it. I mean, I think I could do it if I needed to, but I don't really want to. So that's why I was just curious, what your overall, vision was as far as that stuff goes.
Yeah, I want to direct some of them. And, different ones get me excited about different things. And the one that Brandon and I are working on, I'd definitely love to see, if not one of us direct it, both of us direct it and start getting into that kind of world, because man, it's just, when we talk about it, we both see it so clearly. And maybe we don't know yet, maybe those visions don't line up per se, but I mean, that we'll find that out when we go and storyboard it.
Well, it's very interesting because you are seeing more of the co-director thing now than I think you have in the past, where you have multiple, 2, even 3 people directing a film. I don't know if you're familiar with Roadkill Superstar.
Nope.
Which is a trio of directors from, I believe they're from Quebec or Montreal. They did the movie Turbo Kid. They also did a movie called Summer of '84, which you need to check out. That movie is awesome. I think you would appreciate it as a genre fan. But yeah, there's 3 of them, and they all kind of direct and do different aspects of the film, and it works for them. But I could see where multiple directors could be too much headbutting and egos, and I guess you would have to go in it kind of knowing you're going to have to put your ego in check, because I think anything creative, there is ego involved.
Sure. To an extent, yeah. I think that's why Brandon and I work so well together, and I'm really excited to see what we come up with, because we challenge each other in a way that makes sense. Like, we give each other feedback and question almost everything we say in a positive way to see if that makes sense, or we play off each other really well. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's good to have that type of rapport back and forth with somebody, being able to do that in a, I don't want to say non-threatening environment, but in a non-confrontational, in I guess it is confrontational, but in a little bit more of a sedated sort of way, where
right.
You guys know you're both working towards the same goal to make the best thing possible. So, that would be good. I think that's awesome if you can work with somebody like that, because, doing band stuff and other things, that's not always the case. Everybody's got their own vision. So they it's how much do you want to fight for it, but how much do you also you need to be able to take advice and know when to back off, and some people won't. And sometimes that causes more problems than it's worth.
Right.
Just saying from past experiences. So.
Yeah. But, no, I hear you 100%. And, actually, I get going pretty soon when I hang out with the Brandon. We're going to go see a live taping of Doug Loves Movies tonight.
Oh, cool.
Podcast.
Cool. Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, he does that live, once a week or?
Well, he used to do it a lot more. He had 2 venues out here. One of them shut down last March, or this past March rather. Yeah. And I used to go all the time. I just don't have time anymore. But this is like the 12 guests of Christmas. So it's like elimination style. It has all these celebrities like John Hamm and Sarah Silverman and Patton Oswalt. It's crazy. So don't know who will be there tonight, but it's always fun.
So also, we are getting to that time, man, where it goes by quick, and we're going to have to kind of wrap things up. But are you a big fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000? I
haven't watched a lot of it, truth be told. I want to, especially the older stuff, because it's like a classic. But heard the new stuff's pretty good too, though.
Well, the only reason I brought that up is because you mentioned Patton Oswalt, and he is one of he's one of the Mads on the show now with Felicia Day, and I've kind of been savoring the new season because it's only 6 episodes. So my cousin and I on Thanksgiving got together, had some food, and watched the first 2 episodes of the new season. And I will say, for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, it is hilarious. They did Mac and Me was the first movie.
Oh my God.
And the second one was a Pacific Rim knockoff called Atlantic Rim. And they are both absolutely hilarious. The Mac and Me one, seriously, from a long-time die-hard Mystery Science Theater fan, is one of the best episodes I've ever done, hands down.
Wow.
I laughed so. My cousin, and he's the same way. He's the one that got me into Mystery Science Theater. You know, so we've both watched damn near all of them, and multiple times. And, you know, for him and I to sit there and watch that and just laugh as hard as we were and just enjoying it, we both, you know, kind of looked at each other. We're just like, holy shit, that's one of the best episodes ever. You know, that's the biggest thing with Mystery Science Theater is how well does it hold up on repeated viewings? Because a lot of them get better the more you watch them.
Okay.
You know, so it's one of those because you'll pick up, there's so many little subtle jokes and little things that you'll pick up on. And there's episodes I've watched 10 times and I still pick up on stuff. It's weird, you know. But yeah, so I just was curious because you had mentioned Patton Oswalt. It might be worth checking out. Watch the Mac and Me episode, and I think that would be a really good introduction to it for you. And then go back and watch some of the older stuff.
Absolutely. I grew up watching Mac and Me. I thought it was so cool when I was a kid. So stupid.
So much product placement. Good
oh my God.
Well,
it was produced by McDonald's.
I was talking to my cousin about that, and I said, I think McDonald's had something to do with this because there's a lot of McDonald's references, not just McDonald's, but, you know, different products. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched that episode yet or hasn't seen that movie, but wow. I mean, it's like glaringly obvious. It's kind of like a giant McDonald's commercial, to be honest. It's weird, but it's a riot, dude. And somebody that's seen the movie, that version of it, I think you would appreciate it even more. So.
That'd be a good way to watch it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so is there anything you want to talk about real quick before we wrap things up?
Well, if you don't hear from me ever again, it's because I've been playing Smash Brothers since December 7th, because this is a future episode. I'm super excited for that new one. I'm going to play a lot of that. But besides that, no, pretty much everything I talked about.
Well, hey, it was awesome catching up with you again, man. And where can people track you down online and harass you and ask you questions and, you know, that sort of thing?
So, it's the same Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the blog. It's all Guy on a Wire. So, like Man on a Wire, Guy on a Wire, guyonawire.com. That's where I live, social media wise. I haven't done much with my blog yet, but I'm doing a couple more pieces this month. I'm going to have some pretty fun articles, and it'll be a good time. Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on again and hanging out and talking. It was great catching up with you and hearing what you've been up to. Everybody, please go and check out my sponsors, the Maine Cannababes, www.mainecannababes.com. As always, they are a plethora of resources for information about cannabis, the benefits, the laws, all that stuff. Again, www.mainecannababes.com. Thank you, Jamie. And remember, kids, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and I will see you sexy animals on the flip side.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now.
Thanks for listening to Average Joe's Drive-In. If you'd like to talk movies or contact the show, add our social media pages. You can add us on Facebook at Average Joe's Drive-In Podcast, on Twitter at TWJ Author, on Instagram at Thomas Washburn Jr. You can also hit up www.thomaswashburnjr.com for more information about the show and related links. If you'd like to support the show, you can buy TJ's books on Amazon. Just type in Thomas Washburn Jr. in the search. Books are available in Kindle and paperback formats. If you have Kindle Unlimited or Prime, you can read the books for free and money will be earned by the pages read. It doesn't cost you anything and it supports the show. Until next time, you've been listening to Average Joe's Drive-In.